right, hello and good evening. We are today in 12th episode of the podcast GeoFinance. Today we're going to discuss about the cryptocurrencies and the prospect for cryptocurrencies. So let's start first by asking if cryptocurrencies are becoming recognizable and fully known asset, or they are still some kind of hyped terms that are frequently used in the millennial generation. So, Ivan, hello and good evening. I hope you're fine.
Hello.
Uh, what do you think about these cryptocurrencies and if that's going to be, or if that already is, a serious asset class, or is it something like a hype?
This is a bit difficult to answer. Cryptocurrencies, we have to distinguish between the technology underlying the cryptocurrency phenomenon and the cryptocurrencies themselves. The technology, which is blockchain, is very promising in many ways. It can enable use as a facilitator of cryptocurrencies, but it can also facilitate other things, updates, for example. It can be useful for servers. It can be useful for communication. So this technology has a lot of promise, and even in the cryptocurrency space, it has a lot of promise. It has a lot of potential. However, the currencies themselves, you asked whether they were recognizable. I would say yes, at least some of them. Bitcoin is definitely recognizable. Ethereum, I think, is recognizable. And I'm not sure what you meant by millennial generation because I know people who are not millennials who use or own cryptocurrencies, and also people who are younger, who are Gen Z, I guess, who are
Yes,
also.
certainly think about the people that are like the early adopters of technology thing. I mean, the older generation can be a bit more conservative in that sense, and perhaps younger generations are a bit more open towards the crypto story.
But you have like promoters, including Max Kaiser, for example. He's not a millennial.
Yes, of course, there are also some other like people who are very well known finance persons and stuff. The thing is that it's a bit more like something that is appealing towards younger people for many reasons. So the thing is that do you think that it's only some kind of like check
Asset
it?
class.
Uh, yes. Do you think that cryptocurrencies will have like the wider coverage than is the case today? So it's
Whether they will be more widely accepted, you mean?
yeah, yes, yes.
They might. I think that they will. But to your previous point, you asked about their status as an asset class. I'm not entirely sure that they are an asset class. This might be a bit unpopular as an opinion, and although I will explain later what I think about Bitcoin and the future of Bitcoin, but I'm not really sure that cryptocurrencies are an asset, a real asset.
Why
Crypt
not?
because cryptocurrencies are not really all that useful right now, and secondly, there are thousands of cryptocurrencies, right? What makes
Well,
one
yes, yes.
cryptocurrency special? That's
What,
the real issue. Like Bitcoin costs now it's $10,000 or whatever per Bitcoin. What makes it so special? I mean, there are thousands of other cryptocurrencies that are just like it. Some are better than Bitcoin. Some are more private than Bitcoin, better encrypted than Bitcoin. Some can support more transactions than Bitcoin. So, what makes Bitcoin so special? It was the first, and that's it. Other cryptocurrencies exist that provide pretty much the same thing. So, I don't really understand in terms of fundamentals. If you look at, for example, a company, you if you own stock of that company, that is an asset because the company is expected to create value, right? So the company is going to have profits, and you're going to get dividends. That's a share of the profits. So you're not just buying shares of a company so you can sell the shares to someone else. But with cryptocurrencies now, it looks to me like some people are just buying it as an investment, quote unquote investment. And that essentially means selling it to a bigger fool at some later stage. I'm not really sure that that counts as an actual asset class.
So what do you think is some kind of speculation wheel or something like?
Of course, it's purely speculation because there is no intrinsic value. Because for example, with gold, there is an intrinsic value in gold. Gold is useful. Gold is useful in industry, for contacts, for microchips, for jewelry. There's always demand for gold jewelry, for wedding rings, for all of that. So there is the actual demand for gold.
Store of value,
No, no, I
hedging
don't mean
tool.
that. I don't mean that. I don't mean as as a financial instrument. I mean there is an actual use
You
for
mean the
gold
real
in
use in the real
industry. Yeah.
economy? Okay, real economy. Okay,
So
okay,
in the
I
real
see now.
economy, gold is
Yeah, yeah.
very useful. In silver is, for example, silver is also a financial asset, but it's also used as an
Yes,
industrial
yes.
metal. It's very useful. Mirrors are silver. You know, there is a thin layer of silver in the
Hmm.
back of every mirror. Uh, so all of these metals are used in industry. They have actual uses, even if they lost their financial status, even if they lost um, their market value in terms of a financial asset, they would still have actual value as an intrinsic asset, as something that is useful.
Yes, yes.
But Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies don't have this. So they're a purely speculative financial asset, nothing else. These pumpers who it seems to me that they already own a lot of Bitcoin and they're trying to pump up the value of Bitcoin so that they can
Hmm.
sell it.
Hmm.
I think that that is happening, but I would not be surprised at all if the value of Bitcoin went up in the coming period because obviously what we're seeing is not normal. We
Hmm.
are in a depressionary spiral, not just due to the pandemic, that was the trigger, but due to everything the pandemic caused, industry caused the economy to stop, which exposed weaknesses that were baked into the economy. So,
Hmm.
and it will be a period where irrational investments make sense, including cryptocurrencies, because money will be losing value because of inflation. So people will try to find anything to save some of that value. And in terms of dollars, I'm sure that cryptocurrencies will gain value. I mean, will gain the number of dollars needed to buy units of cryptocurrencies, that's going to go up. But I'm not really sure that the cryptocurrencies themselves will be worth more when everything ends.
All right. So what about that Libra story that was pretty much well covered in media? Do you think that institutional investors and other persons involved in that project have abandoned it? Do you think that similar projects can occur in the future?
Libra was not a real cryptocurrency. That
Mm-hmm.
was people
Meaning?
have to understand it. Libra was not based on nothing. Libra was supposed to be based on a basket of currencies. So the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound. It was supposed to be based on a variety of other currencies, and this is not what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is not backed by anything. Even these fiat currencies, which are also not backed by anything, they're backed by governments.
But
But Libra, in terms of Libra, Facebook, it's an okay idea, I guess. But it's something that I actually feared because Facebook would have monopolized trade
mhm,
worldwide, and that's not good. And it wasn't the entire project wasn't abandoned. It was shut down. Basically, the government said you can't do that
why
because
not?
the government wants to keep the sole rights to print money, to make money.
Hmm.
Because if government loses power over money, if it loses power over funds, then it loses all power that it has. So if someone
Apparently,
else can
yes.
create money, if someone else prints money, if a private company like Facebook creates money and controls money, then government is sidestepped completely. The government has no recourse. The government can't do anything about it. So of course the government wasn't going to accept this. It was a bit ridiculous for them to expect for this to work, because of course it's not going to work. And even if Facebook, for example, said to the government that they would completely comply with all of the regulations, everything that the government comes up with, it's still risky for the government, for the U.S. government, because the dollar is the reserve currency currently. If Libra becomes popular, dollars are not going to be the reserve currency anymore. Libra is going to become the reserve currency, because people are going to trade in Libra and they're going to save Libra. They're not going to use dollars, and the U.S. loses power there.
Do you
So
think that it's really possible that some kind of cryptocurrency, either backed by something or not, would gain popularity so enormous that it can overthrow dollar as a reserve currency?
of course, that's very possible. It's actually, there is a likelihood of, I don't know, about 30-40% that that's going to happen. I think that if they're smart, China and Russia might do something like that.
Mm,
If
how?
they combine their gold reserves and they make a gold-backed cryptocurrency,
Hmm.
then they put all of the gold somewhere in some bunker in Siberia, and they just keep adding gold. So you have a cryptocurrency that is backed by gold. So there is no inflation. So there is no printing. You can't create more of this cryptocurrency. Maybe that could work. Maybe that could dethrone the US dollar.
Do you think it's politically feasible? I mean, we are talking now about one alliance and one very interesting hybrid financial architecture.
The it's feasible in the sense that the US is becoming very difficult to contain from the Russian and the Chinese standpoint, because the US has already made it impossible for Iran, for example, to use the SWIFT system.
Hmm.
And both Russia and
Sorry
China.
for interruption. Can you explain what does it mean for some listeners who are not following what actually SWIFT is, and what does it mean to ban someone from the SWIFT?
Well, SWIFT is a company in Belgium, and a person who's not really knowledgeable about this would say, what does that have to do with the US? SWIFT is really the system, the electronic system of payments. The company controls the electronic system of payments, the global system of payments, international payments. So if you want to send money from a country, say the United States, to someone in Thailand, it goes through SWIFT. And so if you cut a country out of SWIFT, they can't send money abroad electronically. They can't receive money. It's very difficult for them to do business, for companies from that country, for the country in general to do business. And there were some theories about Russia being banned. There were some proponents of Russia
Yes.
being banned from SWIFT back in 2014, and ever since 2014. This would be, of course, devastating for Russia. So Russia has developed its own system,
Hmm.
and China has also developed its own system. And so the Chinese system works in Russia as well. I'm not sure if the Russian system works in China, but obviously these countries are trying to become financially independent from the US.
Hmm.
And I've also seen someone from Europe, I forget who, propose that the European Union, build a system, an alternative to the SWIFT system that would make it impossible for the US. Oh, by the way, the US controls the SWIFT. The board of directors is appointed by the US. So right now, if you do business with Russia, the US can sanction you, or you do business with Iran, or you do business with China, or China not yet, but due to the coming, due to
Well,
the,
not yet. Yes.
not yet, but
Yes.
the relations are very, very poor with China, and the current situation is not making them any better, and it's only going to get worse. So if Russia and China, for example, they would combine, their gold reserves are relatively large, something like 4,500 tons of gold. Uh, that's a significant amount, and that can be used as a backing for a currency. But if someone introduces a gold-backed currency, then everyone else will, the good money, that would be the good money. Because,
Gold-backed cryptocurrency. Sorry
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
interruption. Cryptocurrency,
of
yes,
course.
okay.
So everybody would be incentivized to use that currency because that currency is backed by gold. It's not going to lose value no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So people would dump their fiat currencies to partake in this gold-backed cryptocurrency, and this would be very scary for the dollar, for example, and also for the euro, for other currencies, so-called Western currencies, because that would effectively create an alternative to their system. And obviously, some countries that are not part of the Western system would embrace this. And this is not just Russia and China. This would be North Korea, obviously, Iran,
Yes.
Syria, maybe Iraq, other countries that want to establish better ties with Russia, with China, Venezuela, I guess. And this is a very short list, but as the U.S. dollar loses its influence, the U.S. as a country will lose its influence, and it will lose a lot of satellite states. So more countries will definitely join this system if it is established.
Okay, this is a bit interesting platform that you're proposing. So we're now diverging towards the geopolitical reorientation through cryptocurrencies, which is a bit novel thing to so to say. So do you think that it's possible? Do you think that some kind of international cooperation in that sense could come one day and jeopardize the US and their conception of the world? This is a big
Absolutely,
question.
absolutely. This can happen, and it might actually happen. I see this as a distinct possibility. This is not some long shot possibility. This is a real possibility because we see Venezuela, for example, created a cryptocurrency named Petro, which was
Hmm.
which was backed by oil. Something backed by oil is better than something backed by dollars, right? By dollars are backed by nothing.
Or something backed by nothing. Yeah, okay.
So even a currency like that has more potential, has a better use than Bitcoin or the US dollar. And if other countries, maybe a currency can be based on a global currency, can be based on a basket of things. So not just gold. It can be based on gold and silver and oil and something else.
You
Uh,
mean commodities and
yeah,
precious
yeah.
metals?
But based on commodities, yeah, exactly. Precious metals and commodities, something that has real value, something that is intrinsic. That would be a real store of value. That would be something that is worth something.
Something that is less speculative, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that is a real possibility. Currently, Bitcoin might be an okay investment, quote unquote investment, but the fundamentals remain the same,
Which is, there
which
is
is
no
nothing.
fundamental.
There is
Yes.
nothing. Yeah, it's air. It's nothing. And I say this as someone who profited from Bitcoin. I owned Bitcoin and I sold Bitcoin. I acquired Bitcoin when it was something like $10. I sold it when it was a lot higher than that. So I wasn't a pumper. I was aware that it's not backed by anything. It doesn't have any fundamentals. So uh, it's difficult for me to judge people who want to profit from Bitcoin, but at the same time, I can't recommend it as an investment because I'm really skeptical.
Okay, it's a bit risky thing. I mean, you cannot predict almost anything right now, and to predict something that is coming out of thin air, it's even more difficult.
If you're choosing between investing in quote unquote investing in gold or other precious metals as opposed to cryptocurrencies, I would say go for the precious metals. Obviously, this is not investment advice. This is just my opinion, but
Hmm.
but the thing is, yeah, Bitcoin I have or other cryptocurrencies I have doubts as to them uh, becoming the global currency as some people claim. Because Bitcoin is often said to be digital gold because it's digitally limited to there's going to be a limited amount of bitcoins that can be mined. Yeah, but it's not real. Gold is real, and there's a limited number of bitcoins that can be mined, but there is an unlimited number of other cryptocurrencies that will come up, and it's difficult for me to see how Bitcoin is the future of money.
Okay, one last question before we conclude. We moved from the highly speculative cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin, to possible cryptocurrency that can change the world, geopolitically speaking. What about the regulation? We need to stress this a bit. Do you think that cryptocurrencies can or could be regulated?
That's a big problem for every government, not just for the U.S. government. It's very difficult to regulate them, and it's very difficult even now, even for Bitcoin. I mean, payments in Bitcoin are, you don't know. I mean, it's, if you're at the NSA, you can probably figure this out, but you don't know who's sending money to whom, and that is who's sending Bitcoins. I shouldn't say money, to whom, and this is a big problem. Because how are you gonna charge someone taxes? Someone owns something, sells something. You have no idea. They're not using the banking system. They're not using your currency. You have no idea what's happening as a country. And I can own something. I can sell it to you. You pay me in Bitcoin. It's very difficult for governments to regulate this. It's very difficult for governments to accept it as a method of payment. Another very interesting aspect of cryptocurrencies, especially the more anonymous ones, is precisely that anonymity. Because I've seen Tor onion sites where people offer services such as hitmen, murder for hire, something like that, and they ask for payment in cryptocurrencies, and things like that are going to happen because you don't need to know the identity of the person that you're sending your bitcoins to, and he doesn't or she doesn't need to know your identity. So the transaction can be, you can order a murder of someone, and that the killer doesn't know who you are, and you don't know who the killer is. It's probably a scam. Hopefully it's a scam, but
hopefully yes.
But the problem remains that I don't know what this would mean for child pornography, what this would mean for various other things. So it's not just tax evasion, it's also the more
ethical issues.
The more difficult, ethical issues, I would say.
Okay, we can expand this some other time, but one way or another, I think that we had managed to cover pretty much regarding the cryptocurrencies and the expectations in the future, with some relatively skeptical overview combined with the broader future-oriented perspective. Good. Ivan, thank you very much for your time and for your precious ideas shared with us.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Dear listeners, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you once again and have a pleasant night. Bye-bye.
Bye.